It's official now. DeMeco Ryans is officially the Texans' sixth head coach in franchise history. How the next 6 years for Houston could turn out, and Houston requests to interview Bengals wide receiver coach Troy Walters for their offensive coordinator position.
H-Town, I'm back. It's great to be home. Go Texans.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You ever dreamed of becoming an NFL general manager and managing your own football franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in all caps in the game. I'm John Hibbin. That's Cody Davis. It's February 1st, so happy Black History Month.
Yes, sir.
Down here in H-Town, whether sunny or gray, we're going to ball and parlay as we announce DeMeco Ryans as the Houston Texans' sixth head coach in franchise history. It is official. DeMeco Ryans joins former players to coach the team that they play for. Larry Wilson was the interim head coach for the Cardinals back in the day. Art Shell for the Raiders, Gary Kubiak for the Broncos, where they won their Super Bowl with Peyton. Mike Munchak with the Oilers came back and coached the Tennessee Titans, so that's still one and the same. Mike Dicker with the Bears, and now DeMeco Ryans with the Houston Texans. Now that DeMeco has been announced as the Texans head coach, signing a 6-year deal. Throughout the interview process, both sides were really impressed with each other, and behind the scenes, the Ryans family and DeMeco Ryans is familiar with the McNairs and their family and the city of Houston. Cody, for you, what does this 6-year deal mean for the Houston Texans, for DeMeco Ryans, and what should we be looking forward to?
Stability and growth. Those are the top two important attributes that an organization need in order to have a successful rebuild. Later on in the show, we're going to get into how Nick Caserio has showed a lot of love and admiration towards the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. We all know that Nick Caserio has come from a very successful, if not the best organization over the last 20 years in the New England Patriots. And say what you want about the Hall of Fame players that they have. Say what you want about the Hall of Fame coaches that they have. But when you take a look at successful franchises, it doesn't matter in the NFL, NBA, MLB, MLS, or whatever, even college, the best programs, the most winning franchises, they always have stability from management all the way down to the coaching staff. And John, on yesterday, we touched on realistic expectations for DeMeco Ryans, and we both agreed that in his first year, we want to see a lot of growth in a lot of these young guys. And when you take a look at a lot of young players that the Houston Texans have as of right now, you have Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie, Damian Pierce. You know, we can go on and on. Nico Collins, Christian Harris. For the sake of this argument, I'm going to go out on the limb. CJ or Bryce. You know, regardless of what goes on in this year's draft, the Texans have a foundation of promising young players. And I said it here a lot on this show. The best way you can make sure that these players come close to their potential, and in some cases surpass their potential, is to make sure you give them stability and also trust as well. Trust is a big factor. I like this 6-year deal. Of course, as you guys know, we've been talking about it here a lot on this show over the last week or so. Speaking with sources and stuff, we are extremely excited about the hiring of DeMeco Ryans. And John, I'm going to say it again. This franchise is finally back on course to be a respectable and hopefully, because it was always respected, but hopefully a winnable franchise by the time we get to year 6.
Absolutely. Listen, and I will not compare this 6-year deal to the likes of the 6-year deal David Culley signed. That no chance. And I'm going to tell you why. Because we've seen a 6-year deal in this building in the last 2 years.
Yeah, we have.
And he's still getting paid. But this is a deal that resembles the likes of Kyle Shanahan and Dan Campbell, that type of 6-year deal. Meaning Houston will give Ryans a real opportunity to build this team from the ground up. We've talked about the realistic expectations, and I think we should expect a good amount of replacement of players from this current roster that is on this current roster right now. The same thing happened with Kyle Shanahan in his first year in San Fran, letting go of safety Antoine Bethea, Marcus Martin, Amar Brooks, Navarro Bowman, all of those players at that time before Kyle Shanahan made it to their franchise were really good players for their franchise, moved on from him in his first year. Same with Dan Campbell with Detroit, moving on from Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, and replace those players with young pieces that has contributed to where this team is right now. Those 2 6-year deals, allowing those coaches, we look at Kyle Shanahan, a Super Bowl appearance, a game away from the Super Bowl, has been competitive, especially when that team is healthy. And as of right now, you can look at Kyle Shanahan as probably being the best offensive play caller in the NFL. Dan Campbell, in his second year, going on a win streak with that Detroit team, putting a coaching staff together that helped aided the success of a TJ Hawkinson from year 1 to year 2 before they traded him to Minnesota, Armand St. Brown, getting Jameson Williams out on the field. We didn't see a lot of him, but the times that we did see him, he was explosive. Signing Jamal Williams, that's a huge offseason signing for their franchise in the past 2 years, when he's been able to do on the field and how loved he is off the field, led the league in touchdowns this year, just drafting well. So when we look at 6 years, 6 for Kyle Shanahan, 6 for Dan Campbell, and now 6 for DeMeco Ryans, is building brick by brick, year by year, draft by draft, free agency by free agency. And this is what DeMeco Ryans had to say. Being the head coach of the Houston Texans is my dream job, and my family is thrilled to be back where? In the city of H-Town. I've been around the game of football my entire life, and I've always had a natural ability to lead others. I want to point that out because everybody in that San Fran front office, coaching staff, they have always spoke highly of DeMeco Ryans. Kyle Shanahan said he's a natural talent, meaning everything that he does, he's naturally good at it. So DeMeco Ryans coming here to Houston, but being under Kyle Shanahan for the past 5 years, growing as a man, as a person, as a leader, and what Houston is getting as a coach. Cody, like you said, it does seem like now the Houston Texans have an opportunity to be respectable, competitive, and in the next 6 years be in a better spot than where they've been the past 6 years, and hopefully competing for a championship. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard us talk about this mobile game a lot here on the Locked On Texans podcast, and I can't tell you how much fun I had competing against my fellow Locked On host. Chris Carter of the Locked On Steelers was our Locked On NFL champion. CC is just naturally talented at what he do, just like our new head coach, right? And then you know what? It's your turn to get in the game and compete. But more on that later. Listen, if you ever dreamed about becoming an NFL GM, placing your feet in the shoes of Nick Caserio, well, now is your chance. Your dream can come true whenever you play this game. It's definitely for you. You'll manage every strategic aspect of this team playing through the season and lead your team to glory trying to build a dynasty. And with football, Ultimate Football GM, you are responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators. I wonder if Nick Caserio is playing this game. But also trading players, navigating your franchise through free agency and the drafts and all of the ups and downs of a season. All of this In a challenging yet realistic game where Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline, you can play on the go as you want, when you want. Our Locked On Texan listeners get a free 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure you check it out today. The Ultimate Football GM is where your fantasy football starts now. Locked On is headed to the Senior Bowl. Get inside analysis from the hosts that cover the NFL's next generation in college and find out which NFL draft boards these players are climbing. All in one location. Subscribe to the Locked On NFL Draft for nightly live shows from the Senior Bowl on Wednesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You know why this day was so great for the Houston Texans? I'm going to tell you why. When was the last time Houston won a bidding war? What I'll tell you today was,
oh my gosh,
we're going to start this tradition of winning something. It's a good day for Houston because the Broncos spent Tuesday still trying to lure DeMeco Ryans away from the Houston Texans. And by
with their Walmart money.
Yeah. And by the way, Walmart, cut down on them eggs. Why don't you? I'm getting Locked On money, but I ain't getting enough Locked On money for no $10 carton of eggs. But this was a glorious day for the Houston Texans, even at the last hour, able to pull away, get their guy, something that in the past few years, few seasons, they have not been able to do so. So got to continue to count the wins. Cal McNair said, we are thrilled to welcome DeMeco Ryans as the new head coach of the Houston Texans. For so many reasons, DeMeco is everything we are looking for in a leader, a coach for our organization. He has a proven track record for developing high-quality players and constantly innovating his defense, his defensive scheme over the last 6 seasons in San Francisco. I like that from Cal McNair, pointing out why he's our guy, why he is the number one candidate, and why he's our new head coach, because he constantly develops high-quality players. Now, Nick Caserio, Cody, your job just got a whole lot easier, Nick. You don't got to deal with holding the hands. You don't got to deal with combative schemes and whether or not you're going to be on a play call, headset or not. Now your job is simply to be general manager. Cody, what do you got to say about that? Because you got an interesting point. I can't wait for people to hear.
Yeah, and I want to take us back to the first time Nick Caserio got hired. And, you know, even though he came from the New England Patriots, the one thing that I think everybody kind of agreed was the fact that we have some type of trust in Nick because he knows what success looks like. I mean, as I mentioned in the first segment, he came from the New England Patriots, who in the last 20 years, they might be the most successful franchise. Maybe probably added in the Lakers in terms of around all sports. But Nick Caserio knows what success looks like. However, ever since Nick Caserio has been the general manager for the Houston Texans, every time he used a franchise as an example of how to build success, he always uses the Pittsburgh Steelers. And before moving on, I want you guys to listen to what Nick Caserio had to say. This press conference that I'm about to show you guys took place the day after they fired David Culley. So we're looking at about a year, about this time last year, when we had an opportunity to talk to Nick Caserio and listen to what he had to say about building a successful program and how he was able to use the Pittsburgh Steelers and more so Mike Tomlin as a primary example.
Accountable to them and be able to perform and be able to deliver something that they're proud of and the city of Houston is proud of. And it's going to take a lot of work, but the one thing I've never been afraid to work. And I think if we're going to fearlessly evolve as an organization, we can't be afraid. We're going to have some bumps and roads along the way. There's going to be some things that don't work out the way that really we hope, but ultimately we just have to keep pressing forward and take as many people along with us and create an environment that's conducive to winning on a day-to-day basis, which that will ultimately lead to more sustainable success over a long period of time, which those programs that you mentioned, that's what they've been able to do. I mean, I would say nobody has, and we competed against them, I would say almost yearly, but I mean, nobody respects what the Pittsburgh Steelers have done more than myself. And when you look at Coach Tomlin, I mean, you look at the organization, right? Basically 3 coaches over the course of the Rooney ownership, right? They went from Chuck to Bill to Mike. And when Mike was hired, Mike was a coordinator for 1 year in Minnesota, right? He was 30-something years old, maybe 31 years old, whatever it was. And at the time, I don't think people knew, like, okay, Mike Tomlin is going to not have a losing season in 15 years. I think the Rooney saw Mike Tomlin and said, you know what, that's our guy, we believe in him, and we're going to give him the runway and the opportunity. And, I mean, look, Mike's as good of a coach, I would say as good of a leader as there is, and forget about sports, probably in, like, organizational behavior. So I have a lot of respect and admiration. And Brian, I think it's a good point. Look, that's the goal. Boy, that's a difficult goal and a difficult mountaintop to reach, but that's what we have to strive for. And we're not there. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're there. We've certainly made some incremental progress, I would say, this year, and hopefully we can continue to make more incremental progress, understanding that change is going to be a part of it.
John, listeners and viewers, throughout this whole entire process, I kept going back to the similarities that is between Mike Tomlin and DeMeco Ryans. Both of these guys are young coaches getting their first opportunity to be a head coach. Mike Tomlin was a little bit younger, about 31, 32 years old. DeMeco Ryans was 38. Tomlin had 1 year as a defensive coordinator in Minnesota. DeMeco Ryans 2 years, but both of these guys were defensive-minded coaches. And John, like I just mentioned, ever since Nick Caserio has been in that building, he has used the Pittsburgh Steelers on several occasions about what he values and what he views as the pinnacle of success in this league.
Yeah, and if I look strictly at what Nick Caserio, you know, what type of GM he can be now, man, you know, for one, he doesn't have to worry about holding the hand of a coach. When we look at year one with David Culley, he also doesn't have to, you know, look at working without a collaborative effort in terms of ideologies and philosophies, right? That was an issue between Nick Caserio and Lovie Smith, to the point where at the end of the year, you're hearing, you know, Lovie Smith kind of shutting his ear off to everybody and doing things his way and the only way, in the stubborn style of coaching, right? Now Nick Caserio, all he has to do is draft to the scheme of his coach. And this is a coach that you can trust fully to win games in 2023. I don't think that was the case for the past 2 coaches. This is a general manager that can sign free agents to the scheme and the ideologies and the philosophies of your new head coach. And this is important. Now he and his scout team can go about their jobs understanding what their coach is looking for and looking to do on both sides of the ball. And I think that starts with addressing free agents. Cody and I, we got to take a more in-depth look at free agency, not necessarily players, but how Nick Caserio can approach this free agency now that he has the coach of his dreams. Maybe the coach has just saved his job, right? I know DeMeco Ryans has 6 years. Nick Caserio has 4 years left on his 6-year contract that was signed 2 years ago whenever he came here in town. I think the next 2 years for Nick Caserio is critical. If we look at, you know, at the end of next year or 2 years from now and say, wow, this team, they have a coach, he's out there trying, but why isn't this team performing well? Why aren't they competitive? The first step we're going to look at is trying to figure out, well, whether or not this competitive roster is, if this roster is competitive or not, and then we'll take a look at Nick Caserio. Got to look at some of these potential offensive coordinator positions that could be filled soon. So that's going to be how we end up the show. What a great day for you guys to be Texan fans. Ain't that right? This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bet with your first bet, even if your first bet doesn't win. You can't beat that. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score the first touchdown. Yeah, listen, you can't beat that. FanDuel is a sports bet app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And best of all, you'll get your winnings paid instantly. Join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/locked-on to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. And today's episode is also brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. You can either order them online at BuiltBar.com or visit your local Walmart or Sam's Club today. If you order offline, use promo code LOCKEDON15 and you'll get 15% off your order. They have so many different flavors to choose from. My personal favorite is the churros, sweet, tasty, tastes just like a candy bar, but it's healthy for you, and it's a protein bar. Again, you can't beat that, the best of both worlds. So visit BuiltBar.com today or visit your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers out there. I really wish I had like a caller number 9. What's on your mind? I can just hit the button and let them talk, man. Had an interesting time in the Texan space earlier today. Orchestrated and led by my man John Crumpler. Y'all know who that is. Follow my man John Crumpler on Twitter. Included Big SARS, DJ Bienemy of ESPN.
How I missed this?
My man Cole Thompson. You wasn't around, man.
I was around. I mean, I know I was knocking out articles and producing the show, but nobody hit me up. That's how y'all do, y'all boy.
You wasn't on Twitter.
I was on Twitter. I literally dropped like 4 articles about DeMeco, giving up injury updates about KPJ and whatever else the Rockets got going on. Y'all saw the tweets, like y'all really. All right, bet.
Listen,
bet. I make my own spaces. Make my own spaces. I'm
hurt. You make a space, man. I'm hopping in that one. We gotta let you guys know about the Houston Texans and what's been going on in the past, hour and some change. The Houston Texans requested an interview with Troy Walters, the Bengals wide receiver coach, and they have also placed a request in to interview the 49ers passing game coordinator, Bobby Slowick. Both of these interviews will be for the vacant offensive coordinator position.
Oh,
listen, don't do that. I know why you did it, and don't do that. I like this because this is DeMeco going to get the guys he wants. This isn't DeMeco getting guys or receiving guys. This feels like the first time. Normally we say things like this. Well, a new head coach typically picks his own guys. That didn't happen with David Culley. It happened somewhat with Lovie Smith, but with DeMeco, this will be the case. And I like it. I love it. Cody and I will discuss more about what Bobby Slowick and Troy Walters could possibly be for this franchise. And I want to point out one of the pros I'm looking at right now is if he can bring some of those same passing concepts that Cincy has been running in their passing attack to Houston. You know who I'm looking forward to seeing play football next year for the Houston Texans? My man, we share the same first name, John Mechie.
I knew that's where he was going.
A lot of excitement right now. Of course, we got to dial it back and get back to realism and reality of the situation, but there are going to be some names that are going to be thrown out there for offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, positional coaches. All of these things will get brought up and discussed. And Cody, you know how big of a person I am of not trying to project who I think the Houston Texans should get, or I like to wait and see, take their process and take their route before we can start talking about it. So right now we waited. We saw the Houston Texans reached out to Troy Walters and Bobby Slowick, to their teams respectively, to interview them for their head coaching offensive coordinator vacancy.
I like it, man. Get a whole new staff in here. Even though we are just at the time of this recording, like 3 hours from the initial hiring John. I just love the love that the Houston Texans are getting. I go back to when they hired David Culley. It was like, what the hell? What is this foolishness? With Lovie Smith, it was like, okay, but this is the first time that everybody from fans to the local level of reporters like you and I to national reporters, everybody is on board for what DeMeco Ryans can potentially do here for the city of Houston, for the Houston Texans. Actually, at the time of this recording, I had a source that texted me and they said, hold on, let me get it. He said that he's a great leader, and I think DeMeco Ryans will turn the Houston Texans franchise around for the better. One of the most exciting days in franchise history, John, as you mentioned. Got to get back to reality here, but at the same time, we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And as I mentioned in the first segment, I'm going to say it again. Hopefully, when we get closer to that 6-year contract, DeMeco Ryans will have this organization competing for championships, not AFC South championship division titles.
We're gonna see, man. Thank y'all for checking out the Locked On Texans podcast today. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Take time to follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Between now and the next couple of weeks, really throughout the entire offseason, my timeline will be in so many different places, but trust or believe, the Houston Texans will be brought up and discussed whenever I'm on Twitter.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me and invite me to your spaces that my, friends and colleagues don't want to invite me to. But you can follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. That's Cody COTY DAVIS _24. I'm going to hold my own spaces. You're not going to be invited, John. DJ not going to be invited. SARS not going to be invited. Was B. Scott a part of that spaces too?
Scott wasn't there.
I about to say, because Scott was. What about Jonathan? Jonathan at the Chronicle. Jonathan Alexander.
I don't know if he was.
All right. Well, fine. We'll have our own spaces. But until next time, when we hold our own spaces, peace.